Hey everyone, this is Martin, and today we're going to discuss one of the top questions that I see asked on social media in the homesteading and the off-gridding groups, and that is, how do you get started? And we're going to start right now. Okay, so I belong to, I don't know, a handful of groups on social media that involve homesteading and off-grid living, and I even belong to a few of them that are on bushcraft, survival, and prepping things. And the question that I see come up a lot is how do you get started? And the bushcraft survival prepper guys, I think you can probably exclude yourself out of this because you already know what you're doing. You guys, all you need is like a rock and a knife, and you can start a fire. And if you don't have a rock and a knife, you can start a fire with a rope and a stick. You know, those bushcraft guys that you give them an axe and they'll sneak off into the woods and build a house and send you a picture of it. They won't tell you where it's at, but they'll send you a picture of it. Anyway, so enough of that. And so the question of where do you get started, or how do you get started with your homestead or your off-grid property, is one that comes up a lot. And it's usually the question is related to how in the world do you get land bought, because the land is such a important part of the connection to that type of a lifestyle. And then the cost is incredible, or it can be incredible in most cases. And that's very discouraging when you first start looking at that, when you first want to start getting into that type of a lifestyle, and it's just, that makes it seem so impossible. So I think that that's kind of overwhelming for people because it's such a daunting task to try to achieve getting that land bought, if that's what you're thinking that it takes to be the first step in the journey. And when I look at that, I kind of look a little bit back on our journey and some of the things that we have done in the past, before we got land. So when I hear people talking about off-grid living or homestead living or lifestyle, I'm not hearing so much, the part of the story that has to do with the land. I'm hearing that the people want to be self-sufficient is probably the best way to describe it. Homesteaders like to be self-sufficient from the food sources. They want to be able to produce all of that themselves. Off-grid people want to be self-sufficient from the energy companies and the power companies, and so utilities. So they, they've got a little bit of a different focus, and a lot of people just want to be self-sufficient from all of that, including maybe public education. And so there's a lot of things that go into that really have nothing to do with the land, other than the land is the place that they want to do all of these things on. So if you back up just a little bit and say, okay, the important part of this is the learning to be and the journey to become self-sufficient, and the land doesn't have to be the first step. It can be the 5th step or the 8th step or something like that. It can be a 1 year down the road, or a 5 year down the road, or even a 20 year down the road goal as part of that becoming self-sufficient thing. So with all of that said, it's important to understand that even if you cannot find a pathway today to get to a piece of land that you can start this journey on, there's still plenty of things that you can do to start building towards that. A couple of examples of that could be, and my wife and I did this off and on over the years. At one point we wanted to have a garden. So it was when our kids were small. And so we had a backyard, so we started building a garden. Did I know anything about gardening? No, I knew that you put seeds in the ground, tried to keep the weeds down, and pretty soon you had vegetables and things like that. So we started a garden, and that's something that we could do in our backyard, and it didn't require a big piece of land. You can start that. You can start it on a small scale. I think our garden was probably about 10 feet by 12 feet or something like that. It wasn't very big, but it produced a lot of produce. And it doesn't cost a lot. I mean, it's some work. We had to till it up to start with. We had to get seeds and all of that. But it was an easy thing to start and learn. And I didn't know anything about gardening to start with, but we learned along the way, and that was easy. As the garden produced its crop, okay, the next step was, how do you preserve some of that? And so, the next step of the learning curve was we started canning some of the things that were in there. We canned lots of tomatoes and different tomato products. My wife made some of the best tomato ketchup that I've ever eaten in my life out of that garden. Had a great recipe for that. So that was something that we learned as a byproduct of the garden, was how do you can and store and preserve some of the food that you're getting out of the garden. And so that was a skill that we were able to learn. It doesn't cost a lot of money. It's a learning skill. I mean, it's something you have to learn, but it's not difficult. But it's just one of more of those steps. And I'll tell you one of the secrets, one of the things that we did with the canning that people don't think of that much is that when we ran out of the garden vegetables to can, we were having so much fun that we were just trying to find anything else that we could preserve through that method. And so we started buying cans of frozen juice concentrate and making those up, and then we would mix them with ingredients to make jellies out of. And we were making all kinds of jellies and putting up jars of jelly by the dozens in our pantry. And we enjoyed doing it. It was not hard. And so was it cheating? Maybe. We weren't growing some of that stuff, but we were getting it and taking juice and making jelly out of it. And so those are all things you can do. That's things that you can learn. And someday, on your land, you may have grapes, and you want to make your own jellies out of those. But you can learn how to do it way ahead of time. A lot of people like to raise chickens as their first attempt to raising livestock. Not every place allows you to do that. We weren't allowed to do that where we were at. We were inside the city limits, and they didn't allow that there. So what we did is we backed up and decided to try to raise meat rabbits. And that's not complicated to do. Rabbits, they're not that expensive to buy. You do have to get some hutches for them, or build some hutches for them. But even that is another learning curve and a skill that you can develop, learning how to do a little bit of woodworking, building a hutch. But rabbits are honestly, you can make it very complicated, or you can do it pretty simple. And with us not knowing what we're doing again to start with, we begin with a buck and I think 3 does, if I'm not mistaken. And there's not a whole lot special you have to do. I mean, put a buck in with a doe for a couple of days and take it out, and pretty soon you have a litter of rabbits. And it's almost that simple. There's feeding them and watering them and tending to them, and that's a little bit of a pain in the wintertime. But still, it's a skill that you can develop. They don't make noise. They don't take up hardly any space. And yet it's a good homestead skill to have, and a good place to start when it comes to raising your livestock. That can grow as you get onto a piece of land or a bigger piece of land or something that will allow more of that. So there's a lot of things that you can do. Building the hutches, for example, and we'll probably end up doing a video on that before too long. And you can to build a hutch, you need very basic hand tools, very little skill, and you can put together a rabbit hutch that teaches you some of the basics of construction and assembling things. So there's all of these things that you can do before you actually have to worry about buying a land. And that will give you a chance to, as you're learning to do all of these other little skills and developing skills and collecting tools and things like that for your journey, what will happen is that will also give you a better understanding of what kind of needs you're going to have in the way of land when the time comes to purchase that. And it'll give you time to start researching, where do you want it to be? How big do you need it to be? What kind of capabilities does the zoning have to give you in order to do what you want to do? And all of those things, as you start to develop all those skills, you can be researching the direction of where you want to go with the land. It'll also give you a chance to start saving up some down payment money, because you're more than likely going to need some once you start looking seriously for some land. And one of the other final parts of the self-sufficiency thing is income self-sufficiency. That's another question. How do you make enough money on your land to pay for it or to keep it going, sustain it, which comes into sustainability of your journey. And so you do have to have some sources of income, whether that's just simply keeping the job that you have now, or getting a job in the area where you're going to live, or if that means trying to make your land produce the type of income that will help sustain you, or maybe completely sustain you. And really, the income thing is if you're looking at developing something on your land that will sustain you from an income point of view, really what you're starting with is your skills and your knowledge, Okay, that in turn produces a product that you either consume right on your land or that you can sell for income, which is the third step of that, is that the product then can potentially become the income source or to help make you financially self-sustainable on your land when you get there. And we know people that do all kinds of things, from raising chickens to selling eggs to making and selling soap and dairy products, and there's no limit to it. Honey, we know people that have bee colonies and they raise bees and collect and process the honey for sale. And so there's maple syrup. We have people that do the maple syrup thing. There's no limit to the number of things that you can do when you direct your interest and your skills into creating a product that can then become something that can be transformed into an income for you. One of the things that I would like to do in the future is to have some of our viewers of these videos send in a quick little video to us on what is it that you're doing on your homestead or on your property that's producing some income for you. Whether it's a beekeeping thing or a soap making thing or a dairy goat thing or something like that. Just make a little 1-minute video or make several little clips and send me several little clips. You can do it right on your phone. If you do it on your phone, don't hold your phone like that. Hold it like this. So as you're making your video, make sure to hold it in this, not that way, this way. And that way I can use it. And we'll put them on a video here, and we'll compile maybe 3 different ones onto a video and publish them. So you will get a little bit of exposure with yours, and other people can get some ideas on what they might be able to do to help sustain themselves on their property. Anyway, with that all said, we're going to start this as a series. How do you get started? And we're going to take all the little steps that you can do along the way before you actually buy your land that will help build some momentum for you, so that when you are to the point where you're ready to commit to a piece of land, you can get it and you've got all that momentum and speed going forward already. You don't have to just start from scratch right there. So my plan is to put out those videos in a playlist. We'll call it something like How Do You Start? And that'll be on a playlist on our channel. And we're going to upload those videos, I believe, I think we're going to try Sunday mornings for those videos. And so if you want to make sure to get into the loop on those, click the subscribe button down below. Click the notification bell to all notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever a new video comes out. You won't have to just go look for it each time one comes out. And if you have thoughts or ideas or questions, very, very important, go ahead and put them in the comments below, because as of right now, we're still capable of answering all of the questions that we get. That may grow beyond our ability at some point, but right now we answer every single one of them and are happy to do that. So give us some comments down below, and we'll see you next time.